right. So you are all set, Miss Maxson.
Okay, thank you.
She also said she pulled away while they were still there.
Next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. Call Ricky D'Antano.
Here comes Ricky.
He's bound to mess it up.
Somebody said bound to mess it up. At least that's what the closed captions picked up.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Excuse me. Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Richard D'Antano, D''ANTUONO.
And Mr. D'Antano, where do you live?
In Canton.
And how long have you lived?
My whole life, 30 years.
And do you work?
I do.
What do you do for work?
I do flooring.
How long have you been doing that?
I'd say 2 years.
Now, so if I could turn your attention to the evening of January 28th into the early morning of January 29th, 2022. Do you recall those days?
Yeah.
Do you recall what days of the week those were?
The weekend.
And do you recall whether or not you worked that day?
I don't.
And at some point in time on January or any day in February of 2022, did the state police come to interview you about the information that you had as a driver of that vehicle?
No.
In fact, isn't it true that no investigator from the state police or the district attorney's office interviewed you anytime during the entire year of 2022?
Correct.
And then the first time you speak to any official, it was not from the district attorney's office and not from the defense in this case, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. The Fed can word this differently, Mr. United.
Okay. The first time you gave a statement to anyone, it was not Mr. Lally or the state police, and it was not defense in this case, correct?
Correct.
And that was on May 16th of 2023?
Which time would that be?
First time you gave a statement, sir. May 16th of 2023, does that sound correct?
Around that time it would be.
Okay, and you know today is May 15th, 2024, right?
Yeah.
So just about a year ago was the first time that you gave any statement about your memory of what occurred on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
And you agree with me that your memory of what occurred on January 29th was the freshest when you got up that day, later that morning, correct?
The next morning after the 29th?
Yes.
Correct.
Right. And you'd agree with me that your memory would have remained fresh for a period of time, correct?
Correct.
And you agree with me that over time, your memory becomes less fresh, right?
I would agree.
And it's not just you, it's everyone, correct?
Correct. Objection.
Let's move on.
Sure. And you were first asked about your memory about what was clearly over a year after January 29th, I suppose February, March, maybe about 16 months after the events that you were asked to describe, right?
Correct.
And then it was only after you talked to someone else, again, not the prosecution or the defense.
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. United, we're going to see it's our
Why don't we let him finish his question before we rule on it, Your Honor? How about that? How about let him get his question out? How about get the camera off of Karen? Somebody asked who this man is behind. This is their AV guy, AV squad guy. This is Mr. O'Keefe, John O'Keefe's dad, Mrs. O'Keefe, John O'Keefe's mom.
So I was just going to ask you, the first time that you were approached by the state police regarding this case was September 2nd of 2023, correct?
Around that time, correct, yeah.
Right. And that would have been 5 months after the first time you were approached, and it would have been about 21 months after January.
Let that sink in. So the first time he ever spoke to anybody was when he was obviously talking to the federal grand jury or the feds in May of 2023. And it wasn't until September of 2023, 4 months later, that the Massachusetts State Police bothered to get a statement from this witness who was at the location of 34 Fairview on the night that Officer O'Keefe was murdered. Look at poor Jim, the clerk, his head in his hands, as he often does, I think. That's his hand. He's over it. He's like, what are we doing here?
29th of 2022?
Correct.
All right. Now, you drove your own Ford F-150 to 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
And the plan was to pick up Ryan's sister, Julie, correct?
Correct.
And the entire time you were in the car from when you left to go to 34 Fairview until you're now leaving 34 Fairview to go home, that driving arrangement was the same. In other words, you and the